For the 5th episode of the Amalgam podcast, I'm joined by Brittany Stodgell. Brittany is a partner at Propaganda Creative, and she is a graphic artist. We were recording at Propaganda Creative in HDG Architecture's headquarters downtown Spokane. This is the second time that they've given me access to their offices to record episodes, and I couldn't be more thankful for it. Speaking with Brittany about things like brand identity and logo design was an absolute treat. This gal is super talented. She's involved with multiple businesses, and I've provided all those links below. So check her out, and please enjoy the episode. Welcome, everybody, to the 5th episode of the Amalgam podcast. We have our first female guest, Brittany Stodgell. She's a graphic artist, and she's also a partner at Propaganda Creative. How's it going, Brittany?
Great. How about you?
I'm great. Thank you for joining me. I had to kind of pull some strings and call in some favors to get. She was a little bit hesitant, but that was possibly because this is a brand new podcast, not because she's afraid of being recorded.
Right. Also super duper busy, as most creatives are, right?
Right. And yeah, you guys are leaving soon, aren't you?
Yeah.
Isn't the company going somewhere?
Yeah,
where are you guys going?
We're going to Nice, France.
Nice.
As a company retreat. It's just us coworkers having a good time and stepping away from the desk and, saying we love pushing pixels around, but saying like, hey, we just need a relaxation.
You're human
time.
beings as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And you guys went to Amsterdam before.
Yes.
Was that your first company venture?
Yeah, it was. It was a short trip. I think we had, 2 full days there where we weren't traveling to the U.S. or there. And it was so delightful just to get to know people on a different level. I mean, you spend majority of your time, to be realistic, with these people every day of the week. So, and we're all, workaholics in the best way here. Like, we all just are so passionate, so we love what we do.
Yeah.
So, it's more than your average 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 here.
Yeah.
So when we say we spend most of our time together, we really do.
Yeah.
But,
working hard too. So you guys.
Yeah.
That's amazing that your company does that. I guarantee that 99% of companies aren't going to front a trip like that for their people, which means you guys are really valuable to them too. So that's a great way to kick back.
Yeah, it's a nice bonus and a really good opportunity to, as I mentioned, get to know each other on a different level. So
cool. Awesome. And partner at Propaganda Creative. Tell us what that means.
That means that I worked really hard from the ground up and realized, to be realistic or honest with you, I was offered another position somewhere else, and I'm just not a money-driven person, and I really love it here. So I just decided, I'm going to talk to my peers and say, hey, we've been quote-unquote dating for this amount of time. And,
that's a great way
when
to
are we
put
going to pull the trigger here?
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah,
that's great.
It was stressful because, I don't know.
I can imagine.
It's hard to fight for things, but
yeah. Well, you want to be, and this is kind of the struggle as a young adult. And how old are you?
I am 32 in a week.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'll be 31 this year. So, taking control of our lives and really saying this is my value,
right,
and then putting that on the table. Yeah. That's great to hear you do that, because that's what you need to do. And when you're in your 20s and stuff, or you don't have enough time somewhere, it's hard to really feel confident in that. So
yeah, and it's more than just like a personal value. It was like making sure that the people that I work with every day actually know I value you so much, and how you've gotten me to where I am or helped me get there, that like I'm ready to make that commitment too. So.
Right. The other side of that is this is a great place to work, and
absolutely.
I want to buy in here. That's awesome. That's great. And you've been at Propaganda for 3 to 4 years. Is that what it is?
It'll be 3 years in April.
3 years in April.
Yeah.
Cool. So what are you guys working on right now? You mentioned you're very, very busy. What's happening right now?
Right now in my little realm or world of the design area, I am currently working on some branding and packaging work for a family farm called Full Bushel.
Oh, cool.
It's super fun, and they're just really down to earth, not to sound so like punny right now, but farmers, like down to earth people. Yeah. It's a really fun project. And I just had a meeting with a a mother who she has a special needs daughter, and she is interested in how CBD can help her daughter. So it was a really interesting, eye-opening conversation we just had.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get
going on that. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that CBD stuff, I've heard the oil or something like that, it's helped in, what's the one where they have seizures? But
yeah, pretty much anything with seizures. Yeah.
Okay.
Seizures specifically, they've done a lot of research on. But yeah, just there's a lot more research to go into it, and a lot of it I think people don't realize it's at your fingertips. Just ask Google and you'll get so many.
Do some research.
Yeah, so many directions on how this plant that's like all natural, versus something chemically created. Actually has so many positive effects, and it doesn't have to get you high like most people have that stigma with it. So
right.
Yeah.
No, it's it'll be an interesting time for us to see how this all develops, and especially with like a few years of recreational stuff, and now you start to see the money that flows into that, and it's kind of like we got a lot more to go in a lot of this stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, tell us how you got to propaganda. Where did you go to school? Let's start there.
Sure, yeah. Let's see. I went to school at Eastern Washington University. I started there originally to be an elementary school teacher. Since I was in first grade, I just wanted to teach.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and then just realized that the teaching game is just gonna change so often.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I lost interest in that aspect. I actually had someone telling me, one day you might have to teach French in kindergarten or in first grade, and I just was like, wow. I just, I'm really interested in social interaction at a young age, and bringing creativity out of children. I don't know. It's just like interesting to me. It always has been.
Yeah.
I realized marketing's always been easy for me, so I just signed up for some classes, got a degree. Got a job right out of school, luckily. And then I didn't know that visual communication design classes were offered at Eastern at the time.
Okay.
I was working full time, paying for my degree as I went. So I had no student debt after my first degree.
Good for you. That's
it was
impressive.
insane. I don't know if I slept.
Doesn't sound like it.
But yeah, I took some VCD classes for fun at Eastern. Luckily, anytime you're full time, so 12 credits to, I think it was up to 20 at the time, maybe 18.
Okay, yeah.
Cost the same.
Right.
So I was like, well, my free time, I'm already paying for this.
Yeah,
might
take
as well
advantage.
take these classes I'm interested in. So I got a minor in VCD, worked for a year in the marketing field, and I asked my boss at the time if I saw some pitfalls in the company I was working in or at, and asked him, hey, if I took these classes, could I move down to part-time, and then hopefully, I can help you guys rebrand, which they needed really bad, and really stand out. And he said yes, luckily.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
yeah, went back to school, got a VCD degree, and then I was freelancing for a while, just pouring beer and meeting people and just having a good time, living in the freelance paycheck to paycheck, which is, is tough.
Yeah, that's got some nerves for that. That's awesome.
But I stayed in touch with the people I met in school, and I mean, still to this day, like, we'll message each other, hey, does this look like crap, or like, what do you think? Is this like color palette gonna reach the demographic we're talking about? Or
that's awesome to have that kind of network.
Yeah.
And that trust is there as well to
Totally.
really critique each other. That's cool.
Yeah, but we, a friend of mine, Amanda Johnson, and we started Black Sheep Paper Co. as like a fun way to stay in touch, and just to design some fun things. We're both shy, but we really love, like, our quote unquote love language
Yeah.
is like doing things for other people or gifting them things.
Okay.
Or words of affirmation. So we would, write each other fun notes, and then one day we were just like, why don't we just start a card company? Like, we can't be the only ones.
Right.
So we started Black Sheep, and that's where that started.
So that's what the inspiration was. That's cool. I was going to ask about that. When I was looking through the cards and stuff, I liked your guys' style for sure, because the card industry is, I think, one of those where it can be ultra cheesy and obnoxious, or it can be like make you cry just by looking at it. So
yeah.
I think you guys fall very well into an attractive product lineup for sure.
Thanks. Yeah. Sometimes you just want to send someone something that makes them giggle, and that's honestly where
it came from. I was gonna say, what was the inspiration? So make people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And you also have a little Etsy, kind of spinning off of the selling products, and you also have an Etsy shop.
Yeah. So it's called Brittany Made This. It started out as actually a friend. I'm also a graphic artist, so I or a painter, artist in general.
Right.
So I'd make things, and she just thought they were cool enough to sell. So she actually set the store up for me. Her name's Devin. Hey, Devin. She set up the store for me, and it's insane. It just kind of worked out. I ran with it, and originally behind the name of Brittany Made This, we were going to start a collective, a bunch of us from school, that would be like Devin made this or Miranda made this.
Cool.
And then we would have this hub site called We Made This, and it was gonna
That's a great idea.
Go branch from there, but it all kind of fell off, but I just stuck with it. So yeah.
Well, life happens.
Exactly.
So that's cool you kept with it though. That's an awesome idea. Maybe over the course of time it comes back full circle. That's cool. And you're trucking along. You're gonna keep it alive. Living the dream. And that brings us to Right Mind Printing, right? That's the third. I was writing down notes for this, and there's so many companies to write about. So Right Mind Printing is, I think we're at the fourth one.
Yes. Yeah. I have a thing with starting things. Especially when I come up with ideas, it's like, okay, I'm gonna run with it. I'm gonna go with it and see what happens.
Good for you.
And Right Mind Printing is it's a screen printing company. The right next door to Propaganda Creative. And it's owned by Damon, a friend of mine, but also a very good friend of my boyfriend, Ken. They've been in bands their entire lives, and they just love music. And they were, kind of sick of paying for someone to do 20 t-shirts for $30 a pop online, just to sell merch. Because, musicians nowadays don't really get paid very much. It's like, thanks for your time, here's a beer. Even though you just put in 15, 20 hours a week together doing this. So they just decided to try it on their own. And luckily, with my background, I could help them out as much as possible. So they also allow me to go into the shop and, learn along with them. And
cool,
and
get your hands on. Nice.
Yeah,
you
just
do
have
your
another
own thing.
outlet. Right.
Yeah, awesome. When I was looking at that website, I like that one a lot. That one's very cool. And I feel like it's really easy to kind of just do the same thing in websites because it works and stuff, but this was a great attempt at changing the user experience. Like the user interface is not necessarily this dive around a sitemap. The information's there, but it's hidden. It was great. I love it.
Thank you. I'll tell them that you liked it.
Yeah, it was great. One thing I wanted to ask about is I was going through your Instagram page, and can you tell people if they want to find more stuff from you, what's the easiest way to do that?
Yeah, I think Instagram actually is probably the easiest way, especially with, the age group that I interact with, which is probably most people buying my products. Instagram, and the handle is just Brittany Made This, all one word, obviously Instagram. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and so as I was going through your Instagram, I've noticed that there's a lot of hand-drawn script. And what's the technical term for that style? What is that? Is it
lettering?
Lettering. Yeah. Okay, that's right. It's beautiful. And so how long have you always done that style, or did you just start getting into it, or what's the story with that?
Actually, when I was a kid, I just love letters. I'm so nerding out right now.
It's all right.
I luckily my parents and my grandparents all had amazing handwriting. Okay. And my mom's from Holland, and she's with English being her second language. She was always just really hardcore about spelling things right and like making sure you pay attention to what your handwriting looks like, and not like in a creepy way, but like sincerely, I don't know. She just cared so much about it that I like really wanted to make her proud.
That's awesome.
So I started teaching myself cursive at the same time as we were learning regular letters.
Okay.
Just because I wanted to do it. And
They didn't make in school. They didn't make you learn cursive.
They did,
Okay.
but we just weren't there yet.
Okay.
It was like a grade
Wasn't
above.
soon enough.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I just remember like nerding out, looking at magazines and just staring at the ads, but like never really reading the material or like staring at layout stuff. And
Oh, so you've been a visual
super nerd forever.
person. That's awesome. Not a super nerd. No way.
Yeah, I would just try to emulate people's handwriting just because I really loved it. And I didn't know lettering was a thing. I used to, back in school before texting was a thing, we like write each other notes. I don't even know if kids do that anymore.
Probably not.
But yeah, I would I'd write like a huge name and then or something really funny and then just like write a sentence. Like that was my note.
That's cool.
So I'd say I've been doing that lettering for a very long time.
Very long time.
Yeah.
And when from a technical perspective, why is it what is it about it that you like about lettering?
I love how there's a bajillion fonts out there now, and a lot of them are free and you have access to them. But with lettering, it's so, not to use an overused term, but it works well. It's just so organic, and you can morph it into what you want it to be to convey a feeling, or, all the way down to marketing nerding out to you right now, but like even down to like a gender or an age group, or, for instance, to compare, a lot of people think like back in the day, Comic Sans was like
right.
But realistically, the only reason why that should ever be used is because like you're doing a comic book for children or a coloring book,
and that handwritten look is necessary.
Right, exactly. So yeah.
Yeah. So and I'll pick up from where you're going when it comes to like the culture of typography. It is, I 100% agree with you, because it's not nerdy, because I've rented books from the library about typography, because it is so important to understand the history of why we change the way what letters look. And then once you start looking at it that way, you're right, you don't look at a sign the same anymore. You look at it like, oh, they use that font, they've changed the kerning,
Right, exactly.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. It's super interesting to me also that, also being a type nerd, that lettering has become such a, it's such a trendy thing, that our kids are like, I don't have them yet, but when I do, our kids won't be learning cursive, but like there's going to be words out there in most lettering will say it's cursive, at least that I've experienced with, and they just won't understand how those letters go together or why they do. Yeah. I don't know. Just like
and there's a lot of stuff that's gonna, with our generation specifically.
Yeah.
And like our parents and then our grandparents and then the generation after us, there's a lot of things like that are going to disappear, and no one's gonna remember why. It used to be like, why do we have 3,000 fonts installed on this computer? Right. Well, because communicating with typography is part of the design. So exactly. That's awesome. Yeah, because I've noticed the lettering has definitely, especially around Spokane and stuff, it's really coming in, and a lot of what you guys have on your Instagram page and yours is these new designs. And what I like about it from a technical perspective is watching the prep work, or like the process of it, and seeing how there's math to everything, right? Yeah, and how you space it and stuff like that. Right. It's interesting you bring that up, because I've had people ask me the question before, like, well, that's calligraphy, and then I have to say like, well, basically they're just not understanding what is the difference between the two, and realistically, lettering doesn't have to have a calculated, here's the X height, here's like the actual distance between every letter that has to exist. It's more of a visual art piece, where typography or calligraphy would be like, there's still a structure that has to exist. Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a good point for sure. When you are coming up with a design, or you're starting out, how do you start? How do you draw inspiration, or what do you source? It really depends on who the audience is for, you know what I mean? Okay. But like some of the times I'll say, I think with any artist this rings true, but it'll be something solely for me.
And in that
Nice.
case, I mean, it's for other people to see, but it stems from a personal thought or whatnot. So in that case, it's just I start, and there's no calculation really involved.
No, you don't have a X and there's X there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Even color palette, I don't know what it'll be. Like when I'm painting, I like to use smaller canvases and then create something larger out of it, kind of like a mosaic, if that works.
Okay.
In your head, like to make sense of what it's going to be. But the way I start is I'll take one canvas and start sketching out a basic idea, or on a piece of paper. I'll even do that. But it'll start out as like 4 kind of gridded together, and then slowly over, I don't sleep when I paint, so like over like 48 hours, it'll just end up being like
Holy cow.
22 canvases.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's weird.
That's awesome.
It's just, I've been sitting Indian style for 8 hours because I paint on the floor. Like, why does my neck hurt? Oh.
Yeah. You have to roll over to get up. And
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a tedious, actually. I don't know. I find it fun.
Yeah. It's
like
works,
no pressure, but at the same time, like the most pressure. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. But,
so 48 hours of prototyping is what you would say? Or
yeah.
what?
And then once I realized, like, okay, it's almost finished, I like a true creative person, right? Like nothing's ever finished. But when you say, okay, for this audience, we'll say this is quote unquote enough.
Right.
Then, still spend a couple more hours like tediously making sure everything is.
The finer details.
Yeah.
Yeah. The stuff you say, I'm going to clean that up later.
Yep.
Yeah. It's awesome.
For other people though, like client work, generally I try to put myself in the shoes of or in the head of their actual audience. And then I try to find somewhere in between the audience and the client, where both will meet and be able to communicate within that mark, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
As far as branding goes.
When you say meeting between what the user or the audience it needs, you're learning them, you're knowing them, and then what the client is asking for, has there ever been a time where you've had to really battle for the user or really explain away, like, I know what you want.
Right.
But
it's actually, I'd say like 10% of the time it works out perfectly where the client realizes like I have like their best interest at heart when I say like, hey, this group probably won't like that color even, down to that one thing. But a lot of the times, the concept will kind of butt heads with one group or the other. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
As far as, I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but as far as physically starting though, on a project, it's always sketch for me. Draw out some ideas, some thumbnails, working with, whether it's over the web with friends or peers, even if it's not a designer, if it's someone I know is in that audience, I'll say like, does this resonate with you? Yep. Don't even need to know why, like just yes or no. And we have the benefit of working in an open office environment where I can just turn around and tap whoever on the shoulder, or, throw an airplane at them or whatever. Just be like,
with the design.
Yeah. What do you think of this? And it just moves on from there.
Cool. When you have your team here, that's something I wanted to touch on was speaking with Jason, it was very top level. So you guys are the gears grinding away on the projects, right? Or some of them. You're not the whole thing, right? Yeah. But when you guys take a project or you take on this new project, how do you guys work together and what is your sort of roles in your team?
Gotcha. I wouldn't say there's really anyone who's unequal with others, if that makes sense. Like we work really well as a team at Propaganda, and I think we all pride ourselves on that. We all have different aspects where it's been like, there's a hole in the company right here where maybe it hasn't even been verbally said, but someone just says, oh, we would benefit by having that. So you kind of it just ends up being part of your role. And I would say we just find each other's best attributes and just say run with it. And it's such a positive thing that we have at Propaganda where if you don't know something, like cool, just learn it. I'm fine with that. Like take the time that you need to to do that, especially if it's going to benefit you, which therefore will benefit the company.
Right.
And I think the best case scenario that I can put it in is watching our two newest members on the team, Jake and Isaac, who both started as interns with us, but definitely proved themselves. And, Jake saw that we needed more help in the coding area and websites. And he just he just took it on, really excelled with it. And now he's, I don't know, he impresses me every day.
Awesome.
It's insane.
That's great.
And with Isaac, I mean, same thing, but I would say more so with animation. He already had a lot of skills under his belt, but watching him be so excited about wanting to learn more and push forward with that has both benefited him and the company. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But I would say personally, my best role with the company would be print products or branding and identity. I'm such a nerd about it.
Yeah.
Just love it.
Yeah. The well, what's cool about branding specifically, because you have an opportunity to communicate in anything that you do visually, right, or in anything you create. But when it comes to branding, that's a really cool thing when it comes to psychology of
right,
everything. And so, can you talk a little bit about that when you're choosing? I mean, we all know, everybody knows that different colors convey different emotions. But what are, we've mentioned type earlier, but what are some other things that you try to, and maybe I could give you, I'll give you an audience, let's say.
Yeah. This could be such a fun board game.
No, exactly. Yeah, a branding board game.
Oh no, I started a new company on this podcast. We're now making board games for
She's
designers.
making a note right now. So yeah, let's say males in their 40s to 50s. So probably dads.
Yeah.
And if you're going to create, a guy comes to you and his market is, let's say he's a contractor, general contractor. What would you do go as far as the psychology to start branding that out?
Yeah. So general contractor, let's see, 40s and 50s. I'd probably stick with something that's more of a simple mark that's straightforward and that shows some establishment and seriousness, but also approachable. Meaning, as far as bringing back to type,
absolutely,
type matters so much.
Of course.
Probably something that it has rounded edges, but it's also like a clean, probably sans serif typeface. And I say that because once you start adding the serifs in, it becomes a little more detailed and
slightly elegant.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It strays from being straight to the point and get it done. Unless it's just the word mark, and then I have a totally different perspective on that. But anyway.
That's okay.
As far as a mark that goes with it, again, super simple.
Icon type, like really nitty gritty details, but more of like a stamp or something like that.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
And colors, how would you go about selecting colors? Obviously, like you said, it depends on what the project's for and who the audience, but general contractor.
I would assume that their market's drawn to approachable, darker colors, probably. Like a gray tone palette actually would be nice with just one bright color, one that really stands out that they can have with a straight across part of their identity to use throughout.
Cool. You created a new brand already. That's awesome. As far as because we covered your team and everything like that, can you talk a little bit about the culture here as far as the sayings that you guys have? You guys are really big into your sayings, and they're not your grandmother's sayings. They're
we're not afraid of words.
Yeah. You guys are honest and straightforward. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Part of the identity, I would say, of Propaganda and HDG both, they're our sister company, and we share a building with them. Part of our culture, I would say, is not being afraid to try new things, but also not be afraid to be outspoken.
Okay.
In a way that's like a big one that we say all the time is make it matter. It's on a wall in our office now, and it was in our previous office. And it says a lot. I mean, it's simple, right? Like, make it matter. Why else would you start something? Or otherwise.
Why put your energy into it if it doesn't? Yeah. Cool. Before we dive into resources, I want to ask you, what in your career, what was your favorite project you've ever worked on? Sorry, I should have said this before we got started.
It's okay.
Sorry.
I put a lot of passion to any project, and it's actually like something that I pride myself on being able to do, is like, even if it's something I'm not interested in the beginning, it's how do I find a way to be interested.
Great.
So to ask me like which one's my favorite actually is a tough question for me. But I would say the one that rings true or closest to my heart would be my mom has Alzheimer's, and 2 years ago, I believe, we had someone come into the HDG office, and I say that because they came in to talk to Josh, one of the owners of HDG, and he knew about my mom, and he also knew that I hadn't really stepped up to the plate of dealing with it going on, and he thought, well, this is a good way for Brittany kind of step out of the box and let's get her involved. So I sat down with the person who had came in just looking for a donation, and he ended up, he and Jason, the managing partner at Propaganda, allowed me to take some time, aside from donating some cash, take some time to actually design some stuff for one of the events they were putting together to raise money. And they didn't even give me a limit of the amount of time. It was like, yeah, work on it while you're here, let's help you get through this.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'd say that's the one. I ended up coming up with some flashcards that resonated with, the things my mom was saying or doing, that maybe people who were new to witnessing the disease, like maybe didn't know how to react to it.
Okay.
For instance, like, my mom for a while was just, everything was a shoe. So I made this, one of the flashcards was just like, it looks like a water bottle. She's saying shoe, but she's talking about that water bottle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know it sounds like dwindled down to obvious, or maybe that just seems that way to me now because I've seen the whole process.
Right.
But yeah, I'd say that one.
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. Least favorite.
Least favorite.
And that's probably going to be hard to answer again because it sounds like you put a lot of yourself into each project.
I do, yeah. Least favorite, maybe I'll clump them in together on what's the most, so I'm kind of changing your question here a tiny bit.
That's all right.
Lump it into the ones that become frustrating, and that would be like just really trying to make the client happy, because after all, that's what we're all here for, is
right.
At the end of the day, like the reason why we do things is making that client smile,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say the frustrating parts are if you do the work, freelance-wise, if you do the work, they say they're happy with it, they boast about it, but not even giving not even the credit portion, but like the never paying you part, like just throwing that under the rug. That goes back to the tradition of every creative being like, F you, pay me. Yeah, talk about being valued, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or, people undervaluing your time, as far as like, I don't know anyone who gets paid that much an hour, and you think to yourself like, Kale, you're willing to spend X amount on dinner every night, but like my 5 hours of time isn't worth your $20 for the meal. So getting paid is frustrating. Or let's see, bringing it back to Propaganda, I'll say when you really know it's the right answer as far as a mark goes, like branding wise, and they just are not having it. And then you give them 15 more options and still saying, well, one of my clients, the client says to us, well, one of my clients said XYZ, and it's not what you're delivering, so it needs to be what they want to make them happy, and trying to make the design client, like the person we're trying to talk to, realize that it's like you're trying to reach an entire group of people, maybe not one.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it totally does.
The trying and then still not reaching a point where they're happy is hard.
Right. That well, and you want you want to make the client happy, but at the end of the day, your job is to communicate and to generate interest and catch eyes and everything. And so if you go to school for that and you do that for a job and everything, it's definitely really frustrating if someone can't listen to that. So.
Right. Yeah. Like, they walked in the door thinking I'm coming to a credible place. You have all of this is what you do for a living. So you're obviously knowledgeable, but then not trusting that knowledge is tough.
Yeah. And sometimes, especially in freelance, I'm sure you learned how to vet clients in a way and start coming up with like, well, I got a question for you before I say yes to this.
Yeah. It's interesting. We even have those questionnaires here at Propaganda, whether a client realizes it or not, between conversation of like, what resonates with you, what doesn't, hey, here's what we've seen that works, here's what doesn't,
Yeah. The asking people simply, can you provide an example of they want a logo?
Yep.
Let's make sure before we start, you're not looking for a photograph as your logo, right? Because that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But
or the asking them what they like or what they don't like, but also, what does your competition do that you love /hate?
Yeah.
And how can we differentiate you from XYZ? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Okay, let's talk a little bit about resources. I love this section because I get to take something back, and so does the audience. Do you have a resource you want to talk about?
So I'll start with, like, obviously, I have personally felt that education is so important. And otherwise I wouldn't, have 2 degrees or, like, still be interested in grad school.
Mm-hmm.
But this book called Grit it just resonates with me on having a passion or finding a passion for something, and just dredging in it day in, day out until you get to where you want to be, and just never giving up. I'm listening to it on Audible, so I can double task.
That's all right.
But yeah, just listening to the author talk about, especially at the beginning of the book, about how you can take Exhibit A, so person A and person B. Okay. If person B has the natural talent, at some point they just kind of are like, cool, I have this talent, and they just, don't taper off, but they just kind of stay steady. Whereas the person who might not be as talented but is interested in the subject will just continuously try and try and try, and eventually they end up surpassing the person with talent, in most cases. So yeah.
And that's a theme. I've heard that from a couple of people now. And Jonathan, in the episode I just released today, he said simply that, because I asked, when you stop and start different types of creative things, I used to beat myself up about that. And he says, well, that's if you're trying to make money. But if you're not, you're fine. But what you'll notice is that the people, and he's a musician, so there's crazy talented musicians out there. Uh-huh. The ones who are working to put their stuff and record it and publish it and all of that, you're right, they might be more famous and more popular or make more money than somebody who can tear a guitar apart way better than them. And it all comes down to simply that. Are you going to put the work in, or are you not?
Yep. So yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm trying to look for, is for themes in this show.
Yeah, you got one.
Yeah, I got one. Great. I skipped a portion. I like to ask what your goals and what's the future hold for you. So what are some things you're working towards or you would like to get better at in the next?
As teaching's always been a passion of mine, I still would love to, personal goal-wise, do that in the future. And whether it's just one night class a week, I would just be ecstatic about life.
That's awesome.
Could do that. Yeah. I'd say that. And then helping grow this company, Propaganda, is just like huge on my list of goals. Any partner would likely say. Naturally. But I don't know, it's been so fun watching. So Kyle, another partner, he's been with Propaganda, I think about 6 months, just shy of 6 months, longer than me. And I think he could probably agree with me when I say, like, it's been so fun watching him grow as a designer and as a person. And I don't know, I'm hoping that eventually it'll just be a goal for everyone at Propaganda, specifically, just to have that same mindset with each other. I've already seen it with Jake and Isaac, as I mentioned, them attempting to grow with the company and for themselves, and having that support from Jason and the other partners has been tremendous. And I hope it continues. So
that's great. Really,
I don't know how I can
really focusing,
dive in there, but
and build from within and make things better internally so that you're creating better projects externally. No, that's awesome. I was gonna ask. The teaching thing.
Yeah.
So when you say teaching's not off the table, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. What would you like to teach? Would it be computer-related design stuff, or would you go back towards something specific like lettering by hand, or what would you like to teach if you were going to start a class next week?
Yeah.
What would it be?
So I think any teacher would say, like, it's a semi-loaded question because, aside from teaching a subject, that's not the only reason why they teach. So it would be like, instilling that idea of grit into someone.
Okay.
I guess to bring it tight back in. But I would absolutely love to teach a branding and identity class just because I'm so passionate about it. It'd be cool if everyone else at Propaganda or HTG would let me use our office, after hours as like just a classroom to teach people. Specifically, I mean, where I came from, I like to always just go back to your roots. And I would love to teach a class at Eastern or for Eastern. The VCD program right now is so phenomenal, but it would be even more rad, if they could. One thing that I missed having in those classes, I lucked out because I already had a marketing degree.
Okay.
But I do see a little bit of a hole in the program where I feel like, I could benefit as far as saying, here's how to take your skills that you're learning, your communication skills and your art direction skills, and how to actually make them marketable.
Right.
I think it'd be cool, and it's something I'm obviously passionate about.
Yeah, so. Naturally.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great next step or next stage when you're ready to like quarter life crisis things and stuff.
Exactly.
Great. Well, do you want to talk about, we already mentioned where everybody can find you, but let's do that one more time just in case they missed it. Where can we find your stuff?
So obviously spend a lot of time at Propaganda. So northwestpropaganda.com. It's NW Propaganda. A lot of people misspell it, so there's 2 A's in there.
That's awesome.
And Brittany Made This is my Etsy shop. So you can find my products there. It's a lot of print work. And then Black Sheep Paper Co. has its own site. If you're local to Spokane, a bunch of my random things are sold in the pop-up shop that's run by Terrain and Window Dressing. So, you can find it there.
Great. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you again so much.
Thank
First
you.
Female guest. This has been awesome, and being exposed to what you guys do here and really seeing how from management down to the ground level how it operates. You guys are clearly going to continue with your success, and I've always thought that your guys' stuff has it's kind of leading edge as far as what else I see, and I've always had a lot of respect for it, and I know you're a big part of that. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, no
Huge
problem.
Compliment.
Well,
I need to be recording you for that.
That's awesome. Well, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here? Is there any announcements you might have? Any current events?
No, actually, okay. I think I'm good. Other than thank you for taking the time to do this kind of stuff. I think it's really rad and really cool for local people to tune in and get to know each other.
Yeah, and I really hope. That's exactly it. I want a network of everybody to have a little piece, and they've all participated. So. Thank you guys. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you everybody for listening. Go check out Brittany and check out Propaganda Creative. Check out Black Sheep Paper Company, Right Mind Printing, and Brittany Made This on Etsy. It's all great stuff. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.